I'm always being asked for camera recommendations, what camera should people buy, and my recommendation usually changes depending on the inquirer and what they're going to be using it for. But there is one camera that I've recommended more than any other. Hello, my name is Roland K. Smith. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I'm a social media manager and digital content creator. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel. It'll help me out a whole bunch. Right now in Australia, you can get the Canon EOS R for about $2,500. For about the same price, you can also get the Sony a7 III or the much newer Fuji X-T4. And I mention all these three cameras because they're probably three of the best hybrid shooting cameras on the market at the moment. Hybrid cameras meaning that they shoot both photo and video to about the same level of quality. Unlike the Fuji X-T4, which is what I'm shooting this video on, the Sony a7 III and the Canon EOS R have both sort of been superseded, but also kind of not really. Since the a7 III, Sony has released the a7 IVR and the a7S III. And while Canon has released the EOS R5 and the EOS R6, but all of those cameras are significantly more expensive than the a7 III or the Canon EOS R. Are they better cameras? On paper, yes. Are they going to make that much of a difference to the person using it? And the answer to that is actually probably no. But let's leave Sony and Fuji to one side for today, because the camera that I want to talk about and the camera that I recommend to most people most often is the Canon EOS R. Now, if you're a professional photographer, then this video is probably not going to be for you. You're on your own path. You know what kind of camera you need. You know what you're looking at. So we'll talk again later. This video is for the people who are looking to buy their first sort of proper camera, or for the people in the offices who have been tasked with buying a nice camera for their company. So those are the people I want to talk to today. To the person looking to buy their first proper camera, what I would say to you is this. When you're buying a camera, you're not just buying the camera itself, you're also buying into an ecosystem. So that means lenses, accessories, services, all of that sort of stuff. And Canon as an ecosystem, it's very mature. It's been around for a long time and it's likely to be around for a long time more. So that means that you've got excellent roadmaps to look forward to, and you've also got great legacy lenses. Now they say that you date your camera body and you marry your lenses. So that means that you are probably going to move on from your camera body at some point in the next few years. Things aren't going to work out, but your lenses are going to stick with you through thick and thin, and you can bring in another body. I don't know okay, that unraveled quick. But the point being that Canon is just as good as any ecosystem to jump into. They have some of the best lenses in the world, and you have access to a lot of cheaper lenses if you're buying the second-hand lenses and adapting them to your new camera. And to the person in the office, probably in the marketing or communications team, buying a nice camera for their company, I'll say this to you. Having a nice camera does not mean that you will be able to take nice photos and nice videos. If you're buying this so you don't have to outsource some work to a professional, that's probably not how this is going to go. But don't let me stop you from buying the camera. You should buy the camera, and you or someone in your office should learn how to take photos and make great video, because we know that video is becoming a much bigger tool in the way that companies are communicating with their audiences. So why the Canon EOS R? Well, for $2,500, you get a tried and tested sensor in a camera that's built like a tank and access to some of the best lenses in the world. The Canon EOS R produces lovely photos. The 30 megapixels of the full frame sensor, they absolutely sparkle. Canon's color science legends are true, and the photos that you take on this, they're going to look just as good on Instagram as they are blown up in Rolling Stone. And the video on the R is really good too. It's one of the best 1080p's that I've ever seen. The 4K though is very aggressively cropped. It's cropped at 1.7 times, which means that if you have a 24mm lens, you crop in at 1.7 times, it becomes a 40mm lens. Now that's too tight for me, so I stick with 1080p when I'm shooting on the Canon EOS R, and it's fine. Now the quality of the photos and the videos that you're going to get out of the Canon EOS R are going to be somewhat dependent on the lenses that you're using. So on the EOS R, I have used the 24-105 f4, the 70-200 f2.8, and then also the EF mount, which is the older Canon mount, 24-70 2.8, and I've been able to get really nice images out of all of them. I mean, they're all Canon lenses, so expect them to be really good. But the 24-105 and the 70-200, they are both stabilized lenses, whereas the 24-70, the EF mount, is not. So I had no problem shooting handheld footage or slower shutter speeds on those lenses with stabilization, but I did find that the camera was a bit too shaky for me with the EF mount, which doesn't have stabilization. So I would only shoot with that on a tripod or at a fast enough shutter speed. But that's just something to keep in mind because the EOS R doesn't have in-body image stabilization. So apart from the crop on the 4K and the lack of in-body image stabilization, the only other real drawback that I've found on the Canon EOS R are the lack of dual card slots. A lot of cameras, especially cameras that are calling themselves professional cameras, they'll have 2 card slots so you can back up your footage to both cards. So that means if one of your cards fails, you've got a backup of your other footage. The EOS R doesn't have that, so I think that's going to rule out a lot of people who really are professionals, and that might be a deal breaker for some of you. When I was using it, the circumstances in which I was using it meant that there was lower risk if I lost footage. Now, I didn't ever use footage. I used really high quality cards and I would back up stuff as soon as I shot it. But I would completely understand if you passed over the EOS R just because of that alone. Canon has released the R5 and the R6, as I mentioned. They're more expensive cameras, but they do have dual card slots. So apart from those few small annoyances, the Canon EOS R is a camera that I really enjoyed using. It's just built really well. The grip is nice and chunky. It feels good in your hand. I had no lockups or overheating, and I put this thing through its paces. Like, man, I used this almost every day for a year, and I shot in the heat, I shot in the middle of the Australian desert, I shot media conferences that went for hours, and I had no issues. So I really do trust Canon as a manufacturer for the quality of their products. I haven't ever had to engage them for like repair services or exchanges or refunds or anything like that, but I haven't had to. So the Canon EOS R looks nice, it feels nice, it takes great photos, and with the right lenses, it can take really good videos. You get great color science, so you get really good video and photos straight out of the camera. You're buying into an excellent ecosystem, and it's a reasonable price at the moment. And it's for those reasons that I recommend it to people looking to upgrade to their first proper camera, or for people in an office looking to buy a nice camera for them to use in their jobs. I don't use it anymore. I switched back to my Fujis. I like the Fuji system. The Fuji system works for me. I'm a big fan of their lenses, and I know the system really well, so I know what it's capable of and I know what I can get out of it. And the Fujis are not cameras that I would necessarily recommend to people who are picking up a camera perhaps for the first time. I made a video on my Fuji camera. I'll leave a link to that up here, but that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you are considering buying the Canon EOS R, or if you're just sort of shopping around for a new camera for yourself and what you're looking at. But until the next video, keep doing what you're doing.